First, let me thank you for participating as an audience member today. I really appreciate it. And the topic of today's discussion will be on education, not just as an individual obtaining your college degree, but the importance of education for not only yourself, your family, your community, and your state as a whole. The word education is defined as a process of receiving intellectual, moral, and social instructions, which could include training, instructions for a particular purpose, but most importantly, it is the most significant possession one must have. Carol Keaton Strayhorn, Texas Comptroller, said at one time, every dollar invested in our state's higher education system pumps more than $5 back into our Texas economy. And to me, that's impressive as a whole. And I'll go over some numbers in just a few moments. And so the three areas that I'll kind of discuss today are human capital, research and development, and localized spillover. Excuse me. When I say human capital, I mean the educated or the college students receiving their education. Their ability to gain and learn new ways of doing things, new ideas, coming up with new procedures. Higher education raises the skill level of the workforce. Employees begin to work smarter. I have a coworker, but I won't mention his name, but his level of education is inspiring me to make me be a better employee and to learn new things, which I never told him that, but I'm telling him now, I guess. According to traditional economic growth occurs by employing more basic labor, land, and or capital. So if you have more graduates, that is your labor and your human capacity that can grow the economy. Graduates can expect to earn a higher lifetime salary than those that are with high school diplomas or the equivalent. Experienced employees can take their knowledge to current employers, future employers, and provide new products and services to the community and the state and the U.S. as a whole. The universities perform a vital function of generating new research through their leading and training of higher quality labor. Research and development alone is pretty important. The Association of American Universities found that academic research alone contributes to jobs directly and indirectly. Research has been seen as a driver for economic growth. I believe MD Anderson alone has a large research facility where they can test new drugs through different programs. And then with those completed tests, they can create new drugs, again, leading to economic growth. Wisconsin alone spent $883 million on direct research activity in the year 2002, creating over 31,000 jobs. That's pretty impressive to me. Accelerated development of these new research can also create new patents and new products. SAS, or SAS Institute, is a North Carolina-based company. That originally started as they are the largest analytical software company in the world. They're also the largest private software company. Their program, from the development of their software, gathers, stores, accesses, and analyzes data for companies. And 79% of the Fortune 500 companies use SAS software. You may ask how is that significant? And it's very significant. SAS started out as a research project at North Carolina State University. They are now, again, the largest software company in the world, largest private software company in the world. Very impressive. That leads into that localized spillover I mentioned earlier. The impact on these universities that create jobs, you have the employees of the universities. Their families live and grow around those universities. You also have the spillover from tech companies, tech startups. They localize themselves around universities. They want those fresh, educated graduates to be a part of their workforce. Very impressive when, I will say, I believe it's Dell Company. They started in Austin. They have now grown to a pretty large computer company there in Austin. Hiring those graduates from those college and universities I just mentioned earlier. faculty can lend their expertise and knowledge to government, local companies, and nonprofits. Those firms, by employing the new graduates, they now have educated individuals that can provide new processes, offer new products for their company, and to continue to grow those companies. They're also major employers of cities. Houston, actually Austin and University of Texas in Austin is a great one. They're a great employer, and also as Texas A&M and Bryan College Station, again, major employers in small cities. Unlike Houston, where you have a cluster of universities that kind of make up employers. Excuse me. From those universities, they provide leisure facilities, swimming, basketball, gymnasiums, things of that nature. And so just a few highlights. The New York City higher education institutions employed 266,000 people in 2009. The same year, college students and college spending directly and indirectly provided 459,000 jobs in 2009. Very impressive, to say the least. In 2003, it was high school graduates could have a employment or paycheck of $36,000, while bachelor's degrees could earn $65,000. So a significant jump from a high school diploma or equivalent to a college-educated individual. HCC's nursing program is the largest in the city of Houston and surrounding area. The Association of Community Colleges found that overall community colleges have a $13.5 billion economic impact in the region. In closing, I highly encourage you to participate in your local higher education institutions through supporting your alumni, going to collegiate sporting events. Resonate that importance to your family members, to your children, to your nieces, your nephews, to your neighbors. It's imperative that there's an unprecedented need for education, and that is the key to the success of our society. Are there any questions? Anybody any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Question, sir. What are some of the other companies that started at or in colleges that are similar to the SAS?
Other companies, like I mentioned, and that you were referencing, Dell Computers started out of the University of Texas dorm room. Michael Dell started selling parts, and that's how they have become so large. I believe it was Google started in Stanford University. Okay. Well, I'm going to go back. Michael Dell, the funny thing enough is the man did never finish and complete his college education. Very interesting, but to show that from what he can start in college to what it has become now, Dell Computers. Like I said earlier, Google started at Stanford. Facebook was started at Harvard. Some of the two, I guess, technical powerhouses in maybe social media and in the tech world alone. Good question, though. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
How many students are enrolled in those colleges?
There are about, in Texas alone, is the numbers I have, about 1.2 million students were enrolled in the fall of 2009. And they estimate 1.5 million students enrolled by 2015. Then again, this is Texas alone. I don't have other state numbers. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
How many colleges are in the state of Texas?
There are about 145 public and private schools or higher education institutions in the state of Texas, which you don't think that there's that many, but you only hear the few big names, but there are a lot of the smaller ones. HBU would be a small private college, just for an example. Yes, ma'am.
How much has Texas spent on research and development?
They've spent over, I believe it was $3.5 million in research alone, but that encompasses not just salaries for doing the research. It includes supplies, equipment, and of course that equipment then generates from employment for people who have to create those equipment, as well as buildings, construction workers. So it's very impactful from a dollar standpoint. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Well, you had mentioned just now a little bit about the R&D expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
What other things does that pay for? What other purchases go under the category of R&D?
Like I said, equipment. Equipment alone, simple things is down to beakers and microscopes. But then you have large I can't pronounce it, hydrochronic, the large containers that store deep freezers. That's a poor term, but I don't know the exact phrasing, you know what I'm talking about. Refrigerators, freezers, tables, chairs, equipment, all sorts of equipment that I probably wouldn't have a clue, but it's a lot of pieces of equipment, and of course salaries, people who have to get it to and from. It doesn't sound very big, but when you encompass all of it, it's pretty large. I want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me speak. I do appreciate your time, and thank you very much.